I grew up in a little southern town that liked to act like it was wholesome: white steepled churches, brick sidewalks, pecan trees, and folks waving at each other on Sundays. But underneath that postcard surface lived one man everyone feared. We'll call him Troy Carter. He wore a badge, strutted in his patrol car like he owned the place, and for years he decided who got to breathe free air and who didn't. If you were black and driving anything nicer than a rusty pickup, you already knew to keep your hands visible, your eyes low, and your mouth shut. The morning it all flipped started like any other. Sun blazing down, folks lined up at a corner cafe for iced coffee, and me, Marcus Johnson, parking my SUV right out front. I'd been in town undercover for months, blending in, keeping my head down, and gathering files that could finally tear open the rotten network hiding behind Carter's badge. That day was supposed to be another quiet piece of surveillance. But Carter had other plans. I felt him before I saw him. That low hum in the crowd, people stiffening like a cold wind had blown through. When I glanced up there, he was across the street, cigarette dangling, eyes locked on me with that lazy, cruel grin. He sauntered toward my SUV, hands already sliding something from his pocket. Folks looked, but quickly looked away. A mother pulled her child behind her skirt. An old man shook his head like he'd seen this play before, and hated knowing how it ended. Carter leaned into my open trunk as smooth as reaching for his hat. When he straightened, he had nothing in his hands, but I knew what he'd left behind. A few seconds later, he strutted up, his voice loud enough to catch every phone hammer pointed our way. "Nice car," he sneered, circling me like a vulture. "Bet you didn't earn it yourself." Then, like a magician, he reached into my trunk and produced a bag of white powder, holding it high so the sunlight hit it just right. "See this?" he barked. "Dealer trash. Caught you." The crowd went silent except for the tiny chirps of live streams starting up. My heart didn't race. I'd been waiting for this. But part of me still burned. All those years of families silenced, of boys who never made it home, of neighbors who whispered, "He'll disappear you," like it was a curse. I could hear my own voice steady in my head. "Don't flinch, Marcus. Make it count." Carter stepped closer, the bag in one hand, his gun sliding out with the other barrel pressing against my forehead. I could smell the smoke on his breath. "You're finished," he hissed, eyes glittering like broken glass. "Everyone sees it. You're nothing." Phones lifted higher. Somebody in the crowd whispered, "He's setting him up." Another said, "Record everything." Then a man's voice cracked through the tension, loud, raw, shaking, but brave. I saw him put it there. The square shuddered like everyone had been waiting for someone to break the spell. Carter's eyes darted fury, flashing his gun, pressing harder into my skin. "Lies," he roared. "You'll all regret this." Inside me, something shifted. Enough was enough. I pulled a folded paper from inside my jacket, thick, cream stock with a bright red seal, and held it up. The crowd gasped as the words caught in the sunlight. "Federal arrest warrant," and whose name was printed there, Troy Carter's. I didn't need to shout. My voice came low, even rolling into the quiet. "This is over." That's all I said. But the street seemed to tilt. Sirens wailed in the distance, low at first, then rising, swelling, drowning Carter's sputtered threats. Black SUVs swept into the square like a tide of steel tires, squealing doors flying open. FBI agents poured out and body armor rifles raised, securing the street in seconds. The crowd broke into sighs and shouts. Some clutched their phones, whispering, "It's real. It's happening." Carter froze, the gun still on me, but his hand shaking now. Sweat beaded on his temple. "What? What is this?" he stammered. A voice boomed through a loudspeaker. Lieutenant Carter dropped the weapon now. The world had turned. The man who once prowled these streets like a predator was suddenly the hunted. He tried one last swing of his old power, yanking a hidden pistol from his waistband, screaming, "You're all traitors," but a single crack echoed. The agents had fired a clean shot to his shoulder. Carter spun the gun, clattering to the pavement, blood blooming across his uniform. In seconds, they had him face down, cuffed his cheek, scraping the asphalt he'd once made others kneel on. I stepped forward, badge in hand, holding it up for the crowd, for every phone, for every family that had waited years. "Special Agent Marcus Johnson, FBI." I said, voice steady but heavy. "The operation is complete. The entire ring is under arrest." The words rolled across the square like thunder. People screamed, wept, hugged strangers. An old woman shouted, "At last!" A young man yelled into his phone. "He's done. They got him." Agents brought out the evidence, thick files, photos, shipment, manifests, victim lists. Names long whispered now blazed on paper for all to see. A father in the crowd trembled as he pointed. "That's my son." A woman collapsed, clutching a photo, whispering, "They said he hanged himself. They lied." Each reaction hit like a body blow, but it was also a kind of release. Years of fear cracking open into daylight. Even Officer Daniel Hayes stepped out from the line, chest rising and falling, his voice carrying over the hush. "I confirm what I saw," he said. "He planted that packet. He's done this for years." For a heartbeat, the square went still, then erupted into cheers. Cameras zoomed in on Daniel's face, on mine, on Carter, pinned to the ground like a broken idol. We took him to federal court the next morning. Thousands gathered outside with banners, "No more blood, justice for all." Inside, the indictment was read page after page of cover-ups, falsified deaths, drug shipments, money trails. Carter sat pale, bandaged, muttering, "I was following orders," but no one believed him. The judge's gavel came down 3 times, echoing like a bell, tolling for a man who thought he was untouchable. Sometimes I think back to that square, the heat, the phones rising like a forest of small truths the moment a community decided it wouldn't bow anymore. I remember Carter's eyes when he realized the game was over. But I also remember the faces of those families, seeing their pain named out loud for the first time. It wasn't just about me catching a bad cop. It was about them reclaiming their voices, about everyone realizing we don't have to live in fear forever. And yet, even with Carter gone, I know the fight isn't finished. Systems protect men like him. There are other towns, other uniforms, other dark corners. The badge in my pocket is heavy, not just with authority, but with all the stories it carries. So if you've ever watched someone get profiled, harassed, or silenced, if you've ever wondered whether speaking up matters, drop a comment below. Tell me your story. Tell us where you're from. Do you think the system can change, or does it take moments like this, a public undeniable, to break the spell? I read every single one. Because justice isn't a headline. It's what we build together day after day, voice after voice.